heroes and there are legends. Heroes come and go. Legends never die. We usually say that you cannot become a legend before death. These are living legends. If the legends fall silent, who will teach the children of our ways? Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, brought to you by Titan Sensor, is proud to present The Legends. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches Podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, the Legend Series, and today I am honored to be joined by Coach Kenny Moore. Thanks for being on with me.
Thank you, Chris. Certainly my pleasure.
Well, Coach, as I start with everybody, tell us where you actually grew up.
Chris, I grew up in the big town of Valdosta, Georgia, in the 50s. Born in 53 and grew up there and, in fact, lived in a dirt road inside the city limits. That's how poor we were. And grew up with Valdosta football and played for Coach Bazemore, and who is a legend. And many of the young folks, maybe they've heard of him, but he was the man.
So when did you graduate from high school?
I think, Chris, I actually think they socially promoted me.
They asked you to leave.
Yeah, they asked me to leave in 1971. And, we had some great athletes back then. Don Golden, who played at Georgia, and Stanley Bounds, who was at Ole Miss. And, a lot of those guys and a lot of guys that went to Tech in Georgia and all around. And Steve Stanlin, who went to Auburn, and played with a lot of good guys. I wasn't very good, but loved the game.
Well, did you just play football in high school, or did you play for a little bit of everything?
No, I'm a firm believer, Chris, and I like to see the kids engaged in everything, because I think the more you compete, the more game ready you are in everything. And I played baseball. I ran track. I pole vaulted, did the hurdles. In fact, when I grew up, I learned to pole vault on a bamboo cane pole.
Really?
And we had 2x4s that were standards on each side, and we put a nail 1 inch apart and used a bamboo reed for our crossbar. And guess what we had for our landing area on the other side?
Hey,
nothing. Nothing.
Land on your feet.
Well, you hopefully you do, and therein lies my excuse for what happened to me. But it was fun.
Well, we got a fellow that lives in our neighborhood. He played quarterback for Valdosta, but I think he was after y'all, Mr. Bruce Hilton. He was.
I remember the name. He was after us.
I think he was 73 or 74, maybe.
Yeah, he was. I do remember Bruce. I think he had a knee problem in high school, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he ended up going to Memphis, and I think they moved him to running back, I think he said.
Yeah.
But he can still hit a golf ball far. So what was it like playing for Coach Bazemore? I mean, obviously can't talk to him, but I've heard stories. But, what was that like? Well,
Coach Bazemore was, and many people will tell you, I think he was way ahead of his time as far as the things that we did. The pro set offense, for instance, we spread it out, we threw the ball, but everything certainly was based off the belly series with the fullback, and you could do a lot of things. But work ethic. The good thing, though, Chris, is everybody, even the boys club, we had the system down there, and it just you just followed the path, so to speak. up to Coach Bazemore. But we would go to football camp, and we would go to Twin Lakes, and we had cabins that would sleep about 8 guys. It was about a 6x8 cabin. I'm talking about 6 yards by 8 yards. I mean, it was unbelievable. We had one plug in the ceiling for every fan, because there wasn't any air conditioning. We had and the showers would overflow. The floors would be, flooding over. It's the one we didn't all get electrocuted. And that was the days that you never got any water. At camp, we would get a glass of salty water at break and 2 salt pills. And that was that was your liquid nourishment that hopefully carried you through. And then certainly we'd take our straws out of the lunchroom every day, and we'd suck water out of the irrigation system because we were so thirsty. But Coach Bazemore was just, he had a really good staff. And, those guys, there's a couple of those guys I really stay in touch with. We have Wildcat reunions every 2 years. Kurt Bazemore, who is Coach Bazemore's son, and I graduated together. And we stay in touch a lot, play golf a lot, and do things. And we go to Wildcat reunions every 2 years, and great players back then. If you remember Bill Dawson, who was the coach at Marshall University when the plane crashed. He was one of the coaches that stayed back on a recruiting trip, and he was at one of our reunions a couple of years ago, and that was a cool thing to hear him talk and all. But and then you got Enos, who was at the Dukes of Hazzard. He was a great football player in high school, but then he's on the Dukes of Hazzard as the crazy deputy or whatever. He was there telling stories, so that there's a real strong connection there between. We had players from the 30s, 40s, 50s up through the 80s, and so it was a good cross section of people. But there was a strong fellowship, and it still is, between many of the guys, and we do get together. And when we get together, Chris, there's probably at least 75 to 100 guys that show up, and we have a big dinner and tell stories. And
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it really is pretty cool.
So where did you go to college?
You mean the ones they didn't kick me out of?
Yeah. Where did you end up graduating from? Sounds like me.
Chris, I went to ABAC and played baseball a little while. First, I went to Delta State and tried out a little, but that didn't work out real well. But I played baseball a little while at ABAC, and the problem I had, I thought that academically we were supposed to chase girls, and so I didn't do well academically, and so I came home and worked construction, and that didn't work out. That's not. I said, I don't want to do this. I actually knew in the 8th grade I wanted to coach. And so I graduated from Valdosta State. I got my master's from Troy University. I got my specialist degree from Lincoln Memorial University. I've been to University of Georgia to take, courses. So, I'm educated way above my intelligence level.
So you always knew you were going to be a coach. So what was your first job out of college?
Well, actually, Chris, it started in college when Joe Wilson, who was Coach Bazemore's offensive coordinator, he took the head coach in Lowndes in the mid to early 70s. When Charlie Green replaced Coach Bazemore, Joe stayed around another year or two at Valdosta, and then he went and took the head job at Lowndes. I actually coached at the middle school while I was going to college, and took over the middle school program. I was heading it up, and guess what? They paid me $200 at the Coke machine as a supplement to do that. So that was big money. I thought I was rich.
Hey,
And that was in 1974, mid 70s.
oh, you got
And
paid.
yeah, oh well, $200 wasn't bad, but
Yeah,
they had to go to the drink machine and get that. It was pretty cool, but that's why you did it, Chris, because you loved it,
right.
and you wanted to create a career path for yourself, so that others would maybe look at you and so forth. And so I went there, and then when I graduated from college, Butch Brooks, who was offense coordinator at Valdosta High School, he was headed to Washington Wilkes to be the head coach. And Butch was actually my neighbor in Valdosta, and I went with him up to Washington Wilkes as really my first official uh, hit, football job. And I, coached track football there.
How long did you stay with Coach Brooks?
I was with Coach Brooks 4 years before I took my first head coaching job, and that was at Monticello High School in 1985. And I was there 2 years before I had an opportunity. Fitzgerald had come calling, and Jackson High School, which was one county over, and I sort of had gotten into discussions with them deep, and made a verbal commitment. And once you make a verbal commitment back then, you stay with it. And so I went to there, and then, of course, ended up at Morgan County in 1994, and retired from there officially in 2013.
So your first head coaching job, what was that like? You remember?
Yeah, I do. It was.
We always say it's like drinking from a fire hydrant.
Well, they had me hooked up to a couple of fire hydrants, I think, but it was I always tell everybody the first official meeting I had with my football team, we had like 25 kids. Monticello's Class A school, had seniors graduate. So I'm sitting in the gym talking to them. We're going over summer workouts. We're going over expectations and this type of thing. And lo and behold, they started laughing like crazy. I said, "What in the world?" So I turned around, and there was a wolf rat running across the gym floor, big as two cats. And it was unbelievable. I said, "Holy cow!" And of course, the next morning, I smelled something in the gym, and he had died. Evidently, put poison out or something. And our practice field was in the outfield of the baseball diamond. Had no grass on it. We had to call the fire department to come out, and they had to squirt the field down so it was not just like concrete. And it was, because that was the summer of 85, and a lot of people remember we had a serious drought. They were telling us in Monticello, run one bathtub full of water and everybody wash in there, stuff like that. But we had fire trucks come out and water our fields, and it was difficult. And went in there to the equipment room, and everything was on the floor about head high, and we redid all of that, and just went to work. And it was fun. It was fun. The good thing about that, Chris, is I was head coach at three places, and I think my calling was to go in and rebuild programs. And because the three programs that I was a head coach at, we had gone in and they had won like 3 games in the 6 years prior to us getting there. And so what you like to see is you start the weight room up, The kids start seeing themselves develop a little bit. You give them routines, you give them work ethic, and then you start winning some games, and you see the smile on their face again, and you see the parents happy again, and so that's the gratitude that you see with building programs.
Well, the thing I remember about Monticello back in them days is it was one of the most unique stadiums in the state to me. I hate they don't play there no more.
Well, Chris, it was Rose Bowl Field was what it was called, and on one end at the end line was red tips, and you would just actually just run into the bushes, and then if you scored on that end, the people that sat on the porch across the street would catch the extra point and have to, and we'd have to send somebody over to get the ball from them because if we didn't, they'd run away with it.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have a game ball. But yeah, it was a beautiful place. It was down in a hole.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh Lord. And in August, 1st of September, it was like Coach Brooks used to say, it was hotter than the hinges of hell.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was hot. Oh my goodness, no wind blowing or anything.
Every time they show those little memes where it's like it storms and they show those stadiums that are flooded and they're like, Coach says we still practicing. I always think of Rose Bowl Field. I'm like, they had to have taken a picture of that place. That has to be it.
I hated when they built a very nice new school out in the county, high school in the field and all like that. But yeah, there were a lot of memories there, and it was a good place at that time. And before COVID hit and the recession and all like that, it was a little thriving downtown area, and at 5 o'clock you couldn't hardly get around the town square because there's log trucks and everybody else, the traffic coming off 441 and through Macon and everything else. But it was a cool little town when we were there, and our kids were very young.
So then you rolled from there and you went to Jackson, just off 75 in Butts County.
Butts County, yep. It was
had a great run there.
Well, the thing about it, Chris, is they hadn't been in the playoffs in like 20-something years. And we were fortunate enough the first year. That's when within your region, one played 4, 2 played 3, yada, yada, yada. And then the winner of that got to go to the state playoffs, from that playoff routine there. But we were fortunate enough to go out there, and we didn't have a great year, but we had a lot better year than they had, and we did make the playoffs. And the superintendent comes on the field. He says, I want to give you a raise. I said, Miss Hutchinson, I said, it's not the time to talk about that. I said, I certainly appreciate it. I said, but we got a lot of work headed for next week. But, Jackson was a great place. Great people. We were able to redo the stadium there, new lights, new fields, it didn't even have an irrigation system when we got there. We put that in. I got there and raised $10,000 off of selling squares for the cow dump, and and $10,000 in '87, Chris, would go a long way.
Oh, ain't no doubt.
Yeah, it would go a long way. But we got there. Here was the thing about it: we held spring practice, and so I had my reconditioner come in. Sid Farrer. I don't know if you remember Sid Farrer or not. Old buddy of mine. He was Rita McGahee. And we had, I think, 2 certifiable helmets.
Mm.
And we had to get, and that the superintendent told me not to worry. He said, we'll get you what you need. And I think we had to buy 100 helmets right then before we could even practice. That's the kind of condition it was in. So, there again, started from scratch, and had a little success there, and but we had a nice run. I've always had good staff, and any success I ever had is certainly due to the kids and the coaches I have, because I was just a facilitator is all I was.
Well, Lamar County was the big rivalry there, wasn't it?
Lamar was
Or one of them.
no, Mary Persons was the big rival.
Oh, that was the big one.
Oh yeah, Mary Persons. Lamar was pretty good. Lamar always had great athletes. But I tell you who else we had in our region.
Upson.
We had Manchester. we had R.E. Lee, and we had Mary Persons.
Good
Now
Lord.
you play in that region every year, and that's when Tommy Purdue at R.E. Lee he won the state championship, I think, and I can't remember, maybe late '80s or something like that. He was loaded for bear. Tommy did a great job, coaching, and he was like the rest of us. He was old school, and you weren't scared to snatch a face mask and kick them in the fanny. But if I did that, when they did something good, I'd hug their neck too. So it was a matter of finding that area where you could really do something. You could coach the kids up. The parents expected them to work hard. When I got to Morgan County, the first year, the guys told me it was like going on 5 o'clock, and they said, "Coach, we've been every year we always get off and go hunting at 5 o'clock." I said, we won't get off the field at 8, men. So y'all can go hunting after that. And it was kind of a rude awakening for them. But, they said, well, we got to go get our hunting license, and we got to go. And that was just the previous year. The before, Alvin Richardson, who was a dear friend of mine, God rest his soul, had a good run with kids and did a great job with the football program until he had kidney problems, and then he had kidney transplants, and he just couldn't do a whole lot, from there. And another guy came in and took over, and things didn't go real well. And so we came in, and we had to get the wrecker out there to pull old fence post out of the ground so that so people wouldn't trip over the fence. And we redid the stadium. We didn't have irrigation system, didn't have a practice field worth a toot. We put all irrigation in there, redid the stands, built a new field house. It was just a total overhaul, so to speak. And you'll be surprised at what people don't realize, how important high school football is in the community, and how it just galvanizes community when everybody comes together. We were out there the first week, Chris, putting irrigation in, and the mayor comes up on his tractor and starts helping us with his tractor. He says, it's good to see you guys working out here. He says, I'm coming to join you. So when the mayor comes out there, you must be doing something right.
And you told me off air that Wayne County or Ware County had bought y'all out in the first year y'all played them. Tell me that story.
Well, we went to the schedule had already been made, Chris, before I ever got here. So, and it was made on 2-year plans. And so they had scheduled us to go to Wayne County, which is the other end of Georgia. It's a 4-hour bus ride. And so we're taking kids down there and playing a classification higher than we are. And when we got here, we had 2 kids could bench 200 pounds. And so we're taking a bunch of straggly leg boys down there. Now we have worked like a Trojan. My principal even came up to me and asked me if we could cut practice back a little bit because all the kids were falling asleep in class. And I said, well, we can't do that. They just going to have to stay awake. And his son actually played for me. And he said he can't stay awake in class. But we went down there, and so we got in that weight room. And the next year we went down there. Old defensive coordinator was there at the time. I'm not going to call his name, but if he hears the podcast, he'll know who he is. He said, Coach, when y'all got off the bus, we didn't recognize y'all. But we lost that game that first year, and we came back and beat them the second year. And there was a lot of gratitude in that. And we had a great following, and we filled the stands up going down there. I don't know whether it was the football team or they going to leave, go to St. Simon's after that, to go to the beach. But whatever, we took a great crowd. But it was a good way to get our program, to show the progress that our coaches and kids had done, in a year's time. And if you go to work and roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty a little bit, you'd be surprised at the progress that you can make.
Well, I know one of your assistants is a good friend of mine, and he thinks the world of you, and that's Rock Graziano was with you at Madison County. Oh, Rock.
Rock did. Rock's a heck of a football coach, and I hired Rock first at Jackson and brought him over with me to Morgan County, and very, very intense, very detail oriented, and did a great job in the weight room. And we're good friends and talk now. In fact, we had knees replaced at the same time about a year ago, and we're going to get together and play golf. But Rock's a good friend of mine and good football coach.
So all these places you went in and you knew, you were rebuilding, what would you say was the most important thing to get, to realize your process or to realize your program? Would you say weight room was number one?
Yeah, in order to galvanize anybody, I think you got to teach. When programs have been down, Chris, I think a couple of things happen. I think your kids' work ethic and how to work and what to work on and things of that nature are just paramount as far as your success. And the weight room is that's the first thing I did. That's the first thing I did at every place. Was I told the principal, I said, we got to have this space right here for weight room. I mean, that's a necessity if we're going to have a football program. And then we would immediately, I would call the guy from Tennessee. I can't even remember his name now. And he would come down and we would design and a weight system and all like that. And the first thing we did was put on weight mats and bench press and squat racks and power clean racks, and we'd go to work. And you had to teach those kids what it was all about, and you took no excuses. I mean, unfortunately, you lost some kids because either they didn't want to do it, make the sacrifice, or either they said, this is not for me. But the ones that stuck it out, Chris, they did a yeoman's job for us. The kids. We have I never had a lot of D1 kids. In fact, in 22 years as head coach, I only had 2. So high school football is all about galvanizing these good old country boys and getting them to fight for a common goal. And that's what we did, because how many games or how many people or facets or sports or anything else on Friday night, everybody from the bank president to the ones that do the trash pickup, all those people are there to see your product, so if, I wanted my fields pristine. I wanted, I said, hey, we're going to be ready. We're going to put on a show. And on Friday night, we hopefully we were ready to play and brought a good product out, number one, so that my kids would feel good about themselves. And number two, so the community could rally around these kids and it would gain, it was like gaining momentum. As you do well and they see you're doing things for the kids, they're going to jump in financially. They're going to help you. They're going to roll up their sleeves. They're going to help you do things that will show progress in your programs. And that's what we try to do is go in and show them that we were going to work and we were going to provide a way for them to get to practice. If I had coaches go in all four corners of the county to pick up kids. They had no excuse why they couldn't get here. It got towards the end. We would bring some sort of breakfast in for them if some kids hadn't had something to eat or something like that. So we didn't allow. We tried to cover all our bases, and we didn't allow for anybody to have any excuses why they couldn't be there and why they couldn't be there on time. But that's kind of how we did it.
So besides the weight room, you've alluded to the fact, too, how important your coaching staff was. Did you pretty much keep the same guys together all 22 years, or at least a core group of them together?
Chris, I was very fortunate in the fact that when we left Monticello, I went to work in two programs, Jackson and Morgan. I was fortunate enough that they came to me and offered us a package. And in the package, I always negotiated my coaches' salaries. And if their wives were teachers, that they would have a position in the new place that we were going. And so financially, I felt like we really took care of the coaches. And I did not have a lot of turnover. I kept the same offensive coordinator 22 years as a head coach. I changed coordinators three times, defensive coordinators. But we were able to keep that cohesion with our coaching staff, and certainly, that creates continuity for your kids, for your film sessions and everything else. And you know how film sessions were back in there. You had to run those 16 millimeters to the film, production people on Friday night, pick them up on Saturday morning and watch film all weekends. And we didn't have huddle. What a great thing to have now.
Yeah, I always ask the guys, what are some things about the game today that's changed? And that's usually one of the first things. Is it's a great thing, but it's also cut down on some of the camaraderie of sitting around at having a biscuit on a Saturday morning when you trade films, or, meeting at a gas station or whatever, where now with a click of a button, we have that instant access, but good Lord, how it cuts down on time. It is convenient.
Well, yeah. And another thing that's important is in building a program or anything like that, you had to show that you had to show the parents that you had their kids' interest in mind. And when you did that, the sky was the limit. The parameters were way out here as far as, taking their kid and working them hard and things of that. We would have, I would go out in the community and I had people that would raise money for me, and we had a tutorial program for kids after school. We would put them in the computer labs. I hired computers. I hired people to teach, for anybody that needed help. We had tutors everywhere. And so we were trying to cover all facets, of their life, because not only we want to be good football players, we want to be good citizens. And I told the people in the community, I said, let me tell you something, the smarter these kids are, and the more they learn academically, along with the work ethic that we teach them athletically, the better community you're going to have. So that's your buy-in right there. And how could you not say, I'm all in on that, and how could you not say that you're going to give me X number of dollars a month so that we can create this program so that it will be a better school. And then, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're going to have a better community, a lot more cohesion and a lot better support.
Oh, absolutely. That's something Frank Barden and Raven Teague both said, that one thing we've gotten away from in high school athletics is supposed to be extracurricular activity. We're supposed to be providing something through athletics that's outside of what they get in the classroom. And these days it seems like that's kind of gotten backwards.
Well, and it has
with NIL and all this other stuff, and
I was going to say,
people think their kids got to be, this is his path to success, when odds are it's not.
Well, you've got to figure, Chris, how many of your high school, just we're talking about football, or your athletes, period, are going to go on and get a college education. My first thing was what I want from my kids, what I want them to do is I want them to be able to come back 20 years later, sit around with their classmates and tell them what a great time they had playing high school football. Because those are the important things. When we go to the high school reunions, those guys don't talk about when they played in college. We talk about when they played at Valdosta High School and what Coach Bazemore meant to us, and what Coach Green or Coach Mercer or Coach Rudolph meant to us. Those people. So I want to create an experience. If we've got an athlete that's got a chance, yes, sir, I sent films out all over the country, just like hopefully everybody else is doing. And I was I'm past president of the Coaches Association, and so I ran into a lot of college coaches, and we could network that way. And I worked 5 or 6 college football camps a year, and take my kids there, and take my own kid there. I worked camps so I could pay for my own kid going. And but there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. And yeah, we've gotten our priorities out of order a little bit. I mean, the big thing right now is Nico, the quarterback from Tennessee, turned down a $2.4 million NIL because he wanted more money, and there might be more to that than we know. But wow, he can take $2.4 million and invest it and be set the rest of his life. But that's where we are. That's where we are.
Yep, the game sure has changed in that respect for sure, because the best NIL package we can give where I'm at is a bag of chips and a free Coca-Cola, maybe. That'd be about what we can give.
And that was good for Brett. We'd have early morning. We would have early morning workouts, and we'd have maybe devotion, and do a little Bible reading or something like that. And then we brought donuts and milk and orange juice, and
well, there you go.
I thought we were high class doing that, but that's the way, you have food and people show up.
Yeah, you give them a free T-shirt and some food, and you thought you could get these kids do anything.
And see, I know my wife. I've got 2 drawers full of T-shirts, and a lot of them are from the '80s. My wife said, "We need to get rid of some of these T-shirts." I still wear them to work in the yard.
That's right.
I wore one to a game the other day, and my offense coordinator, who took over as the head coach when I was there, he said, "Coach, I remember when we had that shirt in 1988. I said, "Yeah, it still wears good."
Well, Coach, who were some of the coaches you competed against that y'all might have gone to war between the lines, but you really formed good friendships with over the years, that were just some of your favorite guys to hang out with at clinics, or, talk to on the phone or visit with in the off season?
Well, you don't remember Jack Johnson. Probably he used to coach at
Mitchell Baker.
Mitchell Baker. We called him Black Jack Johnson. I mean, you'd go to clinics and you sit down and he'd draw you 47 plays on a napkin and stuff like that. And Jack was a mess now. Coach Dan Pitts, probably as good a coach as there's ever been. Could take his little talent and do well. Coach Pitts. He was a hard nut to crack, and trying to get prepared for him, and his tendencies and all was was, a lot of trouble, a lot of stress. And you got Coach Campbell over Lincoln County. And, that name rings a bell, statewide. Last time I checked, he's the winners coach statewide. I think I'm right on that, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
More wins than anybody. I mean, and I don't even know if there's a close second. Tommy Purdue over at, R.E. Lee was good. Jeff Herring, had that run at Camden County, and then he won one at Grayson, and up here at Oconee County. We played against Jeff. Had some battles against him, and we've Steve Savage up at Commerce, really good friend of mine, and then you got the Ronnie Parsons, who was at Banks County when I was at Monticello. His boys are at Rockmart now,
Mm-hmm.
and really doing a great job up there. And I was just with them a couple of weekends ago. We were down there at the Lee Murray golf thing, and just a Ronnie, the dad, is just a super nice guy, a good friend of mine, and he had a really good running back over in I think it was 85, something like that. Terry Allen who went on and played at Clemson, and I said, "Dang, what is it like, Ronnie, to coach somebody like that?" And I think he had like 170, 80 yards against his first half. I told Ronnie, I said, "Ronnie, we went at halftime." I said, he might have that many yards at halftime, but he's not going to get any the second half, because we're going 11 of them. We're going to hit him every snap. And we held him pretty good second half. But that was a lot of fun. There's a lot more, but those are some old names that maybe some of the young guys, can't remember or have heard of and maybe never met.
Well, speaking of old names they've heard of and probably hadn't met, how in the world did you hook up with your golf partner for the Lee Murray?
Herndon? Yeah. Well, when you run out of leads, and all the old coaches die, you got to take who's left, and I had to take Bob Herndon. No, Bob and I really never played each other, but we would, a long time ago, we ran into each other at coaching clinics, and got to be good friends. And he likes to play golf, and I do too. And Brad Allman, who was Joe Wilson's defensive coordinator for forever down at Lowndes High School, and they had a lot of success down there. Brad, I would play with Brad every year. And, Brad just passed this past year. Really good guy. And I said, Brad, as long as you want to go to these and as long as you want to play, I will be your partner. Well, when he passed, I got a call from Bob Herndon, and so we hooked up. We have a good time together. But, speaking of Lowndes High School, when it first started, Chris, I was at the middle school. We held back 18 kids in 1975. Well, those same kids went on to win the state in 1980. And the bad thing about it, when I tell somebody, I said, one of the kids we held back was valedictorian. That was how much it meant to win football games in South Georgia then. It was really the only game in town. But I thought, I tell that story all the time. And I'll tell you what, my son went on and played quarterback at Furman, and I held him back when he was in kindergarten. But if I hadn't held him back, I don't think he'd ever had an opportunity to play at Furman. So that education was worth about $250,000.
Yeah.
So I don't feel bad about holding him back.
Well, what do you do now that you're retired? And I know you told me earlier you were just getting in from watching your grandson play balls. What all do you do other than play golf and do that?
Well, Chris, I have 9 grandchildren. They age 4 to 21. I got one fixing to graduate from University of Georgia. and one that's just playing with baby dolls, and spend a lot of time with the grandchildren. I work in my yard all the time. I got 5 acres out here in the country in Morgan County. Still live here. They'll bury me here when I die. Like to play golf a lot. Like to be involved in my church. And between those things, I really don't have time to coach anymore. That golf, grandkids, church, and yard takes a lot of time. Besides that, just enjoying life, just enjoying life, Chris.
Well, Coach, I'm so glad that you poured into young people for as long as you did, and you raised us young coaches how to do it the right way and passed on to us the many lessons that Coach Bazemore and his staff taught you when you were a young man coming up through high school. And I just appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Chris, it was, I tell everybody I miss the 50s and the 60s because there was a lot of purity in what life was about then. Life was a lot more simple. People rallied around things that really had some substance. And we didn't have, all the social media and all this stuff going on now. And it was just so much more simple. And to be honest with you, I'm so glad that was the era in which I was raised. And I feel blessed and fortunate that the good Lord has put me on the path he did. And I probably hadn't done as good by him as he has by me.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you, Chris. I enjoyed it, and it's an honor to be with you. And as far as the legends of coaching, I'm way down the ladder, but I enjoyed my time, and hopefully I still got a lot of good friends that come around, and we cook and things like that played for me. And the cool thing, Chris, I got to tell this story because it's really important, is my doctor, my dentist, my banker, my landscaper, all those people played for me. And I have them on speed dial in case I need anything. And they are so gracious. And it's just that's the cool thing. Can't many people say that, but that's really good.
That is awesome. I can't wait to see you at the Lee Murray again next year, Coach.
Thank you so much, Chris.